Hi guys, welcome to today's video. So this is actually the first video for today, and then we're going to do another video that we bind a sketchbook and just do a few other things. So it was all a little bit long to fit in this video. So we're just going to do paint some spring florals in this video. So we're using the Caval sketchbook. I really love this sketchbook. I love the mitered corners. I love the aesthetic, and it's got beautiful paper in it. Yeah, it's just a beautiful sketchbook. So you can see at the beginning there I have already pre-sketched some things, so I like to do that when I think of, and you can see like it's got quite a few pages, so when I'm thinking of something to sketch, I like to put that in there, and then when I feel like painting I can just come back and do that. So I'll often split it up like that. And as soon as it hits spring, I start also thinking about summer, and I've been wanting to paint some shells and pearls that I painted for the Fisherman's Journals a couple of years ago, but I wanted to paint them larger, so I was just thinking about that and sketching some of those out to work on at some point. But so the first thing we're going to do today is we are just kind of considering watercolor, and we're practicing different techniques, different ideas. So the first thing I thought we could do today is practice wet on wet, and rather than just put paint down. So I know that sometimes it can be a little bit nerve-wracking to get that paint onto the page. So one of the things that's really nice about watercolor is you can actually sketch out your idea or your design with water before you actually even put paint on the page. So you can have a little try of something that you're thinking about and sketch it with water, and then go back and add in the color. So that's what we're going to do here. We have just put this little blossom on the page with water, and we are now going back and mixing some colors here to put into the actual water. So we're going to just drop pigment straight into the water, and this is just a really fun way to experiment and to sort of just start to think about and learn about different pigments. Like you can see that the pigment there didn't flow very far in the water, like it's pretty much stayed in the one place. And sometimes you get pigments that flow, quite dramatically and into all the water. So yeah. So one of my favorite times is when the pink cherry blossom trees come out. So we're about to hit that kind of season, and you could fill an entire page like this with just different colors of pinks and reds, and you can see here that I'm using the Daniel Smith Interference Gold. I think that's what it is, and I'm just adding that onto like the Isaro, I think it's the Isaro Rose, but it's basically like a quinacridone rose. I also put in a little bit of the azalea, which is like the neon pink, like the hot pink watercolor. So yeah, you can just have a play like creating different little flowers, and then you can see there on the side. So rather than just adding another flower, I'm just adding a few petals. So a few down the left hand corner, a few up the top. And I'm using different gradations of like water. So some of them are more watery mixes, and some of them have a little bit more pigment, and then that's going to just help the ones with more water look further away and sort of more blended into the background. And you can see that they're kind of not your focal point. So, it's just starting to sort of also help you consider composition and things like that. So the next ones that we're going to do here, I'm actually using I think it's the Turner. I'm going to have to just list all of the colors below, but I think it's the Turner red. It's called a red, but it's actually like a light pink kind of sparkle. And I'm using the Beam Paints Lilac. So this is similar to the Holbein lilac as well, which I really like. It's in a different palette. And yeah, I'm just combining those together to make these really sort of beautiful, dusty lavender, sort of lavender roses. And yeah, we started with kind of the side petal, and now we're going into the actual like full flower. And you can see that like I'm mixing different variations of those two colors together, and also it's kind of adding a few things from the palette. Yeah, and just thinking about you know, the different pigments, where the shadows might fall. So I'm also adding in here a little bit of the smalt blue. This is the Winsor and Newton, and the Daniel Smith Lunar Violet. So again, just sort of deepening up that colour, and yeah, just I'm really just kind of looking at this little spectrum of the pink to the lilac and the different values and hues that I can get there. So as well as just enjoying kind of painting these little cherry blossoms, I'm also kind of thinking about colour palettes. So a few videos ago we did a video on what to paint, like ideas to paint if you're a bit stuck, and one of them was just to paint a page full of petals. So I think that's a really nice idea, just to sort of go through and you know, change the size of the flowers, change the shape of the petals a little bit. You can make them a little bit longer, shorter, more elongated, you know, more petals, less petals, and then also some branches. So here we're just starting to sort of incorporate this branch here, and I wasn't actually, the page actually turns out to be like a little floral bouquet, like quite a few flowers, and I wasn't really, at first we were just going to fill the page with just more of these type of things, but it just kind of developed. But one of the things here that I wanted to show you with this little branch is that the main colour of the branch, I think this one is Daniel Smith Italian Oxide or something like that. Again, it's like a mid-tone brown. It's a little bit of a warmer brown. It's got more yellow in it. And there are a few different ways to build up a branch like this. You can see that the first layer was very more watered down version of this. I'm sketching out the branch, so it doesn't matter if I make some mistakes, and then I can go in with a deeper saturation of that brown, so there's less water and there's more pigment, and I'm just more sketching in the little the sort of bark onto there. But then I'm also coming in with these mixes that have a little bit more of the lunar violet in them. to create some soft shadows, and I wanted to sort of mention this. So we have a mid-tone brown that we're starting with, and the interesting thing about painting is that you can take this colour and it becomes quite a we're using it at pretty much full strength in some parts, so it's quite a dark value. And then we can use the lunar violet, which is darker in tone, and it is a darker value, but when we use the watered out version of it, it becomes lighter than, like a lighter value than that mid-tone brown. I hope this kind of makes sense. And then it becomes a very soft shadow, so even though you're getting the depth of that kind of greater tonal range of the darker colour there, you are getting the softness of the shadow. So if we often look in nature, the contrast is not harsh, it's not very deep. I mean, sometimes it is, but I think sometimes contrast can be overpowered, and so you can still get these kind of variations in contrast without having to go too extreme, if that makes sense. I mean, contrast can also be a stylistic choice as well, and a really beautiful and powerful one. So my mum prefers contrast, I would say, and I'm more of a low contrast, kind of build it up softly. And I think that watercolor gives you that ability to kind of do these glazes. You can see here, like, we've gone back to the blossoms, and then I'm just doing some more, again, building up softly the contrast. And the thing about watercolor is that you are preserving the highlights, and you're actually working from the lightest value through to, at the very end of the painting, is when you put those darkest tones back on the painting. So it's a little bit of a different way than other kind of art mediums. But yeah, so that's just a thing, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the landscape class as well. So just something to consider, that you can create these different tonal ranges. But you can see here that we are just kind of drawing this poppy, and you can actually just mute the volume and go back and kind of watch this through, and pause it and just follow along there with what I'm showing you. So we've just kind of roughly sketched out this poppy, and you can see that the pencil marks there aren't perfect, and I haven't even bothered to erase them. The other thing you can do if you're wanting to draw a sketch like this is you can use a watercolor pencil in the colors that you're planning to paint with, and it will blend in more as well. But again, we're using a very watered out washes to start with, and we've actually added organic vermilion in with the lilac color here. So we're sort of doing this more a soft kind of orange mixed with the lilac, and kind of creating these dusky sunset colors in the in this poppy. Okay, so as you can see, I am building it up slowly, and then I am going back in with some like stronger washes of the organic vermilion. It's the Daniel Smith one, and then mixing that with so this is the Winsor and Newton cadmium free lemon yellow. So I switched to that from that. I used to use the Schminker one. I really still sort of prefer the Schminker one, but the Winsor and Newton one has a stronger light fastness, and it's cadmium free. So the cadmiums are known to have like carcinogenic, like cancer causing things in them. So I tend to steer away from the cadmium colours like the reds and the yellows. But yeah, so I've just sort of put that one in there to try that, and it's going okay. So you can see that like I mixed that lemon yellow with the organic vermilion, and that sort of gives that more orangey tone. And again, I'm building up these layers slowly. I'll let this dry, and then we'll go back in and put some shadows. Okay, so I kept mixing up little batches of the colours that I was planning to use so that they were kind of all there on the palette, and I could mix them together a little bit and then just add little bits and pieces. So that's quite helpful to kind of always have a little bit of a palette going on your palette to get the different sort of mixes happening, the different little colour notes happening and things. But you can see here I'm just going back in with a little bit of the lilac again. I've mixed it with what's happening on the palette, and I'm just adding in some of these, again, the shadows a little bit softly. And I'm actually really inspired lately by Willow Crosley's floral bouquets. So they're so beautiful. She does handheld ones, she does ones in different vases, large ones, tiny ones, and every weekend she kind of shares one on Instagram. And so I have been thinking about that, and I just sort of kept building up this page and building up this, adding different flowers, and you can see here like we added like a little stem of a poppy that was just opening, and also we've kind of deepened the green there to make it sort of more of like an olive green, a little bit like a green umber. But because of what's on my palette there, you can see it's gone a little bit muddy, and so that's why I always like to kind of try and start with a little bit of a cleaner colour. So if I was doing this in a real painting, I would go for I would actually get out the green umber rather than kind of mix this colour, because I just feel like you'd get a little bit of a cleaner colour there, if that makes sense. And then this one here is, so we're just kind of going back to the lemon yellow, putting in some stamens around the centre of the poppy there, and then I'm just adding little tiny dots of the Winsor and Newton gold ink for a little bit of shimmer in the painting. So I've also added the centre of the blossoms, and then I just went in with a little bit of the lunar violet and created the same thing. So I just did lines and then little dots, but it creates like the shadow of the stamen there. So it looks like there's the kind of the colours that I'm going for is kind of like a floral arrangement, but it's like more towards the end of the day. So it's getting some of those beautiful shadows and colours falling on it. And then we just add leaves here. So I'm using, in this palette I have the Sennelier Emerald green and and again the lemon yellow, and just mixing up different variations of the green. Then I'm also adding in some of the either the lunar violet or hematite violet to get some more of that olive green again. So I hope these tips were helpful. You can see down in the bottom right hand corner there, I needed to work on that a little bit more, but I always get to the Saturday and I just run out of time to kind of finish everything. So yeah, I hope this was helpful, and I will have the other video coming out, but it probably won't be out till quite late tonight. Yeah, but it's got some really nice things in it as well, so I'm really excited. And yeah, I hope you guys have a really lovely day, and I will see you soon. Bye.